Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Jaskirat. Good morning, Taranshore. Good morning to one and all. I think we better get started on the topic of the day because students are pouring in very gradually, and it's taken all 15 minutes already to admit all the students. And I believe more of you would join. So I think those people can join on YouTube. It's being streamed. Thank you so much, Nanak, and thanks a lot. So let me share my screen with you, and as informed beforehand, I would be taking up the last topic that is there in our syllabus, which is report writing. And we'll start with the discussion of what exactly is a report. So I would want to hear it from you as to what do you think a report is? What's a report?
A kind of summary of any topic.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, a summary of an event. Yes. Anything else? Summary of a topic is also correct. When we talk of academic reports,
Result of something, some event or else.
that's right. See, you keep, when you read the newspaper, you come across a whole lot of reporting, where journalists, they visit and attend various events, and they present the details of those events to us, to the readers, to the to the big audience that is there, the vast readership of those newspapers, as to what transpired in those events, who spoke what. They'll talk about some of the important statements made during that event, and this is also a kind of a news report, right? So, as rightly pointed out by one of you, that it's a summary of some kind of an event or some kind of a topic. If you look at academic reports, then when you do your doctoral degree or you are studying to do your masters in philosophy, then also you are supposed to write findings and present it in the form of a report, which goes by the academic terms like dissertation and thesis. Even these are reports, right? So wherein you compile all your research ideas, your the thesis you've come up with, various arguments to support your findings, and the various recommendations and conclusions, right? So even any compilation of that sort, it could be your day-to-day business activities, you're a part of in your office, and you're engaging in. And there also you could be asked to submit details of the progress of your work, of the progress of your project. So maybe you would be writing some routine reports, progress reports. Then we have inspection reports. There are a whole different variety of reports that get written. Sometimes you will come across ACRs, annual confidential reports. Now, what are these ACRs or annual confidential reports? Again, reports which will determine whether you get promoted, and if you get promoted, then what are the parameters on which you have been judged, how much incentive you will be getting, what would be the pay hike you would be getting, and these things are kept confidential. So maybe your boss, your supervisor, your manager, or someone who's senior to you is going to write your annual confidential report, and the short form of which is ACR, right? So in progress reports, you mention the details of the progress of your work, and in case you have any other requirements, say you want the deadline to be pushed, you have some requirements pertaining to some materials, maybe you want some more money, some more funds, or allocation of paraphernalia for your work. So for all those things you will be writing your progress reports, and tendering them in to your supervisor or to your boss, so that adequate action can be taken. So based on whatever you are submitting, a whole lot of decision making goes on, right? A whole lot of problem solving goes on in the business world, in the professional world. So you write these reports from time to time. Maybe you're required to submit one every day. Those would be briefer ones. So they, depending on the requirement, they can be very long, short, middle length. They could be formal, informal. They could be academic. They could be technical reports. They could be a list of all the items present in the organization in the form of an inventory report, right? Wherein you gather the data pertaining to all the things that the company possesses, and keep a record of it as to what all is getting used up, what all more is required. So a supervisor or someone who's taking care of that, a caretaker maybe, he is going to be making that inventory report, right? And you as students may be asked to submit your project reports, minor project reports, major project reports. So depending on the work you do, the research work you carry out, or maybe you work on some software, some app, create something, so you compile all your findings in the form of a report, right? So as I said, these reports are very very important. If you look at the word report, we can break it down into two parts: re and port. So re means back, re means back, and the word port comes from the word porter. Porter. And what is porter? Porter means to carry back. Porter is to carry. When you carry something, it is porter. So the whole word report would mean to carry back. So what are you carrying back? You are carrying back the details of a particular event. You are carrying back the details of a particular project or the work you have carried out to someone who would be needing it, to someone who would make some decisions based on it, to someone who was not present there at that time, right? So news reports carry back information, carry back news, carry back facts and various findings for their for the news readers, for the newspaper readers, right? And similarly, when you submit a professional report, a progress report, a project report, again you're carrying back and summarizing and compiling the details of all the work you may have perhaps been involved with, or you may have carried out, for someone who was not present there at the scene, for someone who would be screening it, assessing it, maybe he would be assessing it for better decision making, for problem solving, for policy making, and all those for a wide variety of reasons. I hope I've made myself clear in this regard. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So first of all, we would be looking at business reports, and then we will, also be discussing a bit of your academic reports and how are they compiled. So there is a whole structure to these reports. There's a whole framework that is there when we talk of report writing or report making, and they could be delivered orally also, they could be delivered in the writing format, they could be as brief as a couple of pages, maybe 10 pages or maybe 2 3 pages, or they could be, or maybe just a small report in the a memorandum format, right? What an update on what's the progress of your work, and he says please submit in brief. So maybe you could just write a few lines and maybe a couple of paragraphs and tender it in the form of a memorandum or an email. That would be a very brief report. And similarly, if you are same report could run into many pages, it could be voluminous reports. Reports pertaining to 6 pay commission must have been very huge. Similarly, the 7 pay commission must have been very huge. So policy making reports, they could be almost like a book, which is very, very lengthy, and a whole lot of research is presented there. Details, the structure pertaining to the discussions are there, the conclusions are there, recommendations are there, the mode in which the data has been compiled, the techniques, the methodologies which have been utilized in compiling a report of that kind are also mentioned. They're also presented there. And in the appendix of that report, you may have other kinds of documents, supporting documents. Say you may have some letters attached, you may have some details pertaining to information gathered, some interviews recorded, everything and anything that has got some bearing on that report and needs to be presented will be a part of that report. So, what is a report? A report is a formal communication. Basically, if you look at this definition, and this has been propounded by the writers R.C. Sharma and Krishna Mohan, who've written the book Business Correspondence and Report Writing. That's the prominent book written by them. So, in business correspondence and report writing, R.C. Sharma and Krishna Mohan have come up with the definition for the word report. And according to them, it's a formal communication. It's a formal way to communicate, and you communicate for a specific reason. You write a report for a specific reason. Maybe you have been asked to write a report on the fire safety procedure in your department, or you have been asked to write a report on the training program in your department. So there's a specific reason for which a report would be sought, and a higher authority, a person in the authorities, can seek a report. He would be the specific person to whom you would be submitting it. So it is authorized. You don't write report just like that. Routine reports may be written regularly on a routine basis, and maybe as a matter of protocol in your organization. But then specific reports are written for specific reasons, wherein some higher figure, some higher authority has some details and requires a report to be submitted to him. And that's when he will first submit and ask for a report to be submitted and share his terms of reference, right? That these are the things he would want the report writer to present in his report. So based on those terms of reference, that okay, these are the 5 point terms of reference that needs to be adhered to, that needs to be catered to by the report writer, and then the report writer will set about to gather data pertaining to it, and then compile and make sure that all those 5 points which were mentioned by the authorized figure, those are looked into, and those are responded to, and those are taken into consideration by him in his report. So there is a specific purpose for which a report gets written, and then there is a whole description of procedures which are followed. A report writing is a result of very sound investigation. You have to carry out your investigation, in-depth investigation, comprehensive investigation, intensive or extensive investigation, and then present it all in a logical fashion, present it all in a certain structured kind of a way. And also, there's a need to let the person know, the person who would be receiving it know that what are the techniques you've employed, that your report is based on, say, internal records of the office. There, the report is based on some telephonic interviews, the report is based on some research survey carried out by you, some questionnaire you got filled by the employees of the department. So what are your ways of conducting and gathering that data has to be mentioned. So the collection and the analysis of the data, and then after you have collected all the data, analyzed all the data, what is the significance of that data? What does it mean for the purpose of that report? What relevance does it hold? And what were the conclusions you were able to draw from them? And in case there is a requirement, and the authorized figure requires you to even make some recommendations pertaining to that report, then you would be writing and adding recommendations to your report. So some reports are informational only, wherein you're just presenting the information, and some reports are interpretive, where you're also interpreting all the data for the person who's receiving it. So some reports will confine themselves only to conclusions, that okay, what are the findings, those would be listed, while some reports would also demand you to add should further be carried out, or these are your recommendations after having surveyed everything, investigated into the whole matter, and explaining everything logically. These are the recommendations you would want to forward, based on which decisions would be taken, based on which actions would be carried out by the higher authority figures in the organization. So I hope I'm making sense to each one of you, and hope my voice is not breaking. It's loud and clear.
It's clear, ma'am.
Okay, so I hope all of this has made sense to each one of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So, business reports, as I said, you can make out from the word itself, business purposes. So, a report which would be written for a wide variety of business purposes would be called a business report. And it's slightly different from other reports, because you are dealing with business related information, and you will be preparing it containing all the information pertaining to business matters, and you would be submitting it to your management, to your boss, so that they can take better decisions based on your findings and your recommendations and your conclusions. So again, the reports are a type of assignment, right? What are these reports? It's almost like an assignment which is given to you, and in that assignment, what do? You analyze the situation. It could be a real time situation. Maybe a fire broke out in the organization, and you're required to submit a report as to what happened, why did it happen, and maybe suggest safety precautions for the same. So, a report would be a figure in the organization, and he will assign this task to a specific person who he thinks would be capable, and who he thinks has this in his purview of duty, and therefore he would ask him, assign him, authorize him to submit a report based on what exactly happened in that fire incident, what were the lacunas, who is at fault, what all did he investigate, and finally what conclusions he was able to draw, and what recommendations he would further want to make, so that things can be spruced up, improved, worked upon, and such incidents don't happen again. So, as I said, it's an assignment given where you analyze a real time situation, a real thing, real situation. It could be a real incident in the organization, or sometimes it could be a case study also, wherein he says that, okay, this has been happening. Those people are, some particular business is doing very well. They have a great model that they've come up with, a business development model. Why don't you just study and analyze
their model and present your findings, so that based on that we could also make about, a couple of changes in our procedures, so that kind of a thing also can be done. And you apply business theories. So in your reports you would be making use of a whole lot of business theories, marketing theories, which are the prominent ones, which are the established ones, and make use of them. And based on those, you would come up with suggestions and improvements. So, if you look at the definitions of a business report, one definition propounded by business theory is a document that organizes information and a specific topic for a specific business purpose. So, this is something which has already been explained, and we've understood it well that it's a document wherein you are organizing all the information pertaining to some specific topic, and it would be for a specific reason. Right, so for a specific purpose, some specific topic would be analyzed, would be interpreted, would be discussed, and all that information would be organized in the form of a business report. And then what Murphy has to say is also mentioned here. He says a business report is an impartial, objective, planned presentation of a fact to one or more persons for a specific significant business purpose. So one thing is very important, that the writing, the kind of writing that these business reports utilize is very objective and impartial. You are not to go by your own subjective feelings and emotions. You are to go by the hard facts which are there in front of you, and based on those facts you're going to take logical decisions. So you are to present the information in a very objective manner, and in a very impersonal manner, in a very impartial manner. So when you're recording the details of that event, you don't have to take sides with anyone, that okay, he is at fault or he was the one to be blamed. You have to present things as they are, as they happen. Maybe presenting all the lacunas in there, that okay, this is a possibility, this human error could have led to this. So impartially and objectively, you are going to present your findings, and in a planned sort of a way. Reports are very meticulous. Reports are very well organized. Reports require proper planning, proper structuring. That is the essence of a good report. So you have to make sure that all the details are present in a methodical way, in the right manner, and it caters to that specific purpose for which it has been sought. So, what are the characteristics? I think we've already discussed some of these, and maybe if we were to just go through these quickly, it's written for a specific purpose, right? So, for one specific reason, for one particular theme, for one particular, incident, a report could be called in, or you could be asked to, you could be authorized to tender a report. And it has a pre-specified audience. This is also very important. You submit a report to a specific person, and right on the title of the report, the first page of the report, on the cover of the report, it would be mentioned to whom the report is being submitted. The way you submit your thesis and your dissertations, that these are academic reports, and you submit it towards the partial fulfillment of your degree in philosophy, or towards the partial fulfillment for your degree in masters in philosophy. Similarly, or maybe towards the partial fulfillment, when you write your minor projects or your major project for your degree in engineering. Similarly, for these reports, on the cover page itself, it would be mentioned who is the person who's tendering it and to whom. So it would be mentioned that Sheikh, maybe the foreman or the supervisor, and submitted by, it would be mentioned submitted by this particular fellow, his designation, and to whom, submitted by so and so, to the to Mr. Arvind Chopra, assistant manager. So, who is the specific person who has sought that report? His name would also be mentioned. So, it's a pre specified audience for whom the report is being written. There is a proper layout, there is a specific structure. You have the introduction part, the discussion part, the body part, the discussion part, and then you have the conclusion, and then you have the suggestions and the recommendations. These are the parts of your body, the main body of your report. And other than the main body of the report, you have quite a few things which are attached in the front part of the report and in the back part of the report. So we have the front part of the report, we have the middle part of the report, and we have the back part of the front part of the report is the cover, the title, the frontispiece, the acknowledgements, the copyright information, maybe the preface, the summary, the abstract, all these are the table of contents, everything that goes right in the beginning. And then in the back part of your report you will have things like appendix, glossary, index, and so on and so forth, bibliography if required, works cited if required. So there is a specific structure and a layout which needs to be adhered to. And we write a report on past events. Some incident, some event has already taken place, and we are carrying back that information, we are carrying back the details of that event to someone who has sought for that information. And then it's neutral in nature, objective in nature. It's not subjective. You don't have to be guided by your personal feelings, your personal prejudices, your personal choices, your personal agendas. You have to present everything in the most neutral fashion, as far as possible. And it contains and organizes all the facts of the whole thing. So the information that it bears is very factual in nature, very matter of fact in nature, and nothing abstract. In there you have to present everything in a very concrete sort of a way. And sometimes a report could be a joint effort also. Maybe as a team you have been asked to submit a report, so 2 or 3 people are involved. A 7 pay commission report could not be written all by one person. So maybe there's a specific person who heads the report writing, but then there's a whole team of people involved, and it could be a result of their joint efforts. And a good report has good presentation, a very orderly presentation. So as I said earlier, planned, meticulous, well organized, these are the hallmarks of a good report, important characteristics of a good report. And generally the flow of a report is upward direction. So a lower rung official, yeah, maybe a person who is low in the hierarchy is submitting a report to someone who is higher than him, superior than, I'm sorry, senior than him, not superior but senior. So the flow of a report is in the upward direction. And sometimes you have a whole lot of tables, figures, charts, graphs, visuals in your report. So you may have illustrations also utilized in your report, and these aid in complain sort of carrying information. And there's a signature, there's a date, all these are relevant. Now this is what the various elements of a business report are. I told you about the introductory part, that is the front part of the report. The front part of the report, then the body of the report, and then the what comes after the body of the report. So the last bit is not the body but the end part, right? So in the front part, in the introductory part, you will have the cover of the report, the right hard bound. If it's a hard bound report, then the thick hard cover on top is the cover. If it's a spiral bound report, then again the top page would be considered as the cover. The title page is the next page after the report is written, right? So you give a specific title to your report. So it could, the title could be, maybe the topic of your research work, the topic, the reason why you were asked to write that report. So it could be about business development strategies for the next quarter, something like that. Some title will be given to your report, and then the letter of authorization is attached to it. This letter of authorization is what you get from your senior, who tells you to write that report. So he is the one who will first give you a letter of authorization that please compile a report, and then you will attach that letter in onto your report. So the letter you have received as a report writer to conduct the task, to carry out this activity, is the letter of authorization, which bears the terms that which you have to cater to, which you have to find out, which you have to execute, which you have to render. And those, that exact letter received will be attached, will be placed in the report. And then we have a letter of transmittal. No, there is a copyright notice, right? So you would want that people should not be able to produce or replicate or make more than one more copies, or just circulate the information which is there abruptly or randomly, because it's a result of your hard work. So you don't want people to misuse it, or just extract information whenever they feel like. So there is a copyright notice that it's your intellectual property and nobody can infringe upon it. And then there is a letter of transmittal. This is a important letter. This is the letter you will also be writing along with a report, right? You will be submitting the report along with the letter of transmittal. The letter will be opened by the authorized person, by the authority person, the authority figure, and along with that the report will be handed over, and the same letter will find its place in the report. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so a letter of transmittal is handed over to the person who has sought the report. A separate single piece of paper will be the letter of transmittal, and the same letter which is handed over, and it is along with that letter that you hand over the report also, right? And that very letter will also be a part of your introductory part of your report. You will have it bound in your report also separately. So it will find you will find that you will be using the letter of transmittal at two places. One, in the real time handing over of the report, you will be handing over the letter first, and you will make sure that that letter also is attached in your report in the order in which it has been mentioned. This is the order. This is the structure which one must follow. The cover is the hardbound page. The title is the soft page, a normal regular paper, good quality regular paper, not the hardbound thing. And then the letter of authorization, then the copyright notice, then the letter of transmittal, which is handed over separately and also attached in the report, and the acknowledgement. So you would want to recognize the support or the efforts of certain people, and you would acknowledge their help, their cooperation received. Maybe you got some extra help with regards to the calculation from the accountant, or you got some extra help from the record keeper of the company records. So you would want to make a mention of their names, that these people were helpful to you in conducting the activity. So table of contents, we all know, the whole list has to be presented, that on this page this is the title, this is the subtitle, this is the topic covered, and there's a list of illustrations which is separately presented. Your report may have a whole lot of charts, graphs, and tables, but we compile a list of illustrations separately. It's not a part of the table of contents. So that would take care of all the illustrations which are there in the report. Sometimes people don't have the time to go through the lengthy report. So, and maybe they just need some information out of a particular chart you have created, or a particular graph you have created, or a particular comparative table you have designed and put there. So they can have they can extract it out of the report very quickly. They'll go straight to the list of illustrations and to the specific page on which that illustration is present. So, and for voluminous reports, 100, 150, 300, 400 page report, 200-page report, it becomes very convenient for the reader of that report to locate precise information on a particular page with the help of table of contents and with the help of list of illustrations. So wherein you don't necessarily have to go through the entire text of of the report, the material, the written part of the report. Rather, you quickly go directly to that particular illustration as signaled by the list of illustrations. And then there is an abstract or a summary. There's a difference between abstract and a summary. An abstract is a much briefer version than a summary. We need to understand an executive summary is slightly longer than an abstract. An abstract is nearly 2 to 5% of the original, and a summary is nearly 5 to 10% of the original. So there is a difference of size also. So summary is a much longer version, and an abstract is a much briefer version. And a summary is like the sum and substance of the original, wherein you're capturing the all the important ideas which are there in the original and presenting them in the form of a summary. Whereas an abstract is not the sum total of the original. An abstract is only one where you mention the the scope of that document. What is the scope? What is the extent of its coverage? What all can people find in it? Only that is mentioned, or what is the methodology one has adopted in gathering the data. These details will be mentioned in the abstract. It will not capture the whole essence of the report as a summary does. I hope I'm making sense here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you've been able to understand the finer distinction here between abstract and an executive summary,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Yeah, so and as I said, abstract is 2 to 5% of the original and summary is 5 to 10%. So if your report is say 100 pages, so 2 to 5% of that would be your abstract. And if your summary, again, if your report is 100 pages, then 5 to 10%, anything between 5 to 10% would be the length of your summary. And the summary will also capture the whole essence. Busy people may not have the time to go through the entire body of the report, so they might want to get hold of the summary only. They might just want to screen through, read through, go through the summary and get the gist out of your report. So maybe it's a 2 3 page document wherein all the details of those 100 pages is presented, and that's sufficient for them, and based on that they can further go to the specific pages where they feel they have the required information for them. uh, and similarly, based on the one page or so, one odd page, which is the abstract, wherein they will come to know that okay, these are the things covered in this report, or this is the methodology that the report writer has followed to gather his data, to collect his data. So the extent of coverage, the it's like a preview to the report and the scope of the report. So based on that, the person will decide whether he would want to go through the details of the report or not. And then the body, as I've already told you, the middle part is the introduction, the discussion, the conclusion, and the recommendation. And the later part of the report, rather I should say latter part of the report, not later. Later is with respect to time, latter is with respect to positioning. So the latter part of the report contains the appendix, the plural of which is appendices, right? So there can be one appendix, there can be three or four appendices attached. And what is an appendix, generally written in the form of appendix A, appendix B, appendix C, is any extra detail you want to give. There could be some letter of complaints,
attached, in the form of a appendix. There could be some feedback forms attached in the form of an appendix. There could be some detailed calculations mentioned in the form of an appendix, right? So those things which don't necessarily have to be present in the main body. You want to give something extra, you want to present certain details which are over and above the written discussion you've done in the middle part of the report. So those things get relegated to the appendix, those things get presented in the appendix. And sometimes it could also contain questionnaires, some questionnaires pertaining to your research findings, or maybe it could also contain the whole interview which you carried out, based on which you conducted your findings and you collected some data. So maybe the whole interview with certain people are attached as an appendix, because you don't want to put it in the body. The body would basically would contain all the relevant things, and certain extra things, the detailed study, the background study, and all those things are attached in the appendix. And then your list of references. What are the books? Which are the business theories? Which are the other sources of your information, which you may have utilized in your report? So you would be mentioning the list of references. The bibliography is also pretty similar. Books referred to, articles referred to, journals referred to, any other websites referred to, any other URLs referred to. So all those things, would be written in the form. Maybe you utilize internal company records; those could also find a mention in the bibliography. And then the glossary. Glossary is a list of terms, the various terms you have used in the course of your report. Their meanings would be mentioned in the glossary. All the important terms, phrases, technical jargon utilized would find a mention in the glossary with their meanings. And the index is for easy reference, easy location. So if you've used the word, say, historical, and the word historical finds a mention on 5 pages, 5 different pages on the in the report, so all those 5 pages would be mentioned. So it's such a detailed way of extracting information, a very precise way of extracting information out of. If you've used the word, say, ethnocentric, and you've used the word ethnocentric on page 10 and on page 20, so those the with the word ethnocentric, page 10 and 20 would be mentioned, so that you don't have to necessarily look for that particular word. If it's an important topic in your report, then you can go straight to page 10 or straight to page 20 to find out what is it that about ethnocentric that is mentioned there. I hope this is making sense.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the time like? Okay, it's 11. So there are different types of reports, and based on the function they are fulfilling, based on the nature of that report, the reports can be formal or they can be informal. So this is how we can look at the various kinds of reports on the basis of their presentation, how it is being presented. It can be oral or written. On the basis of the formality, degree of formality, it can be formal or informal. And generally, the formal reports are informational and analytical. Informational would not contain the recommendations, while an analytical report will contain even your recommendations. And the length of the report can determine whether the report is a short report or a long report. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I told you that sometimes you need to submit a small short oral report, and then you need to submit a short
report in the form of a small press submission, and then the written report could also be sought, and it could be formal or informal depending on whether you're writing a routine report or a progress report. So maybe a routine report could be a little informal in nature because you're doing it on a daily basis, and other kinds of reports which are wherein you've been assigned the task of finding details and you've been authorized to do it, then they become more formal and are generally informational in nature or analytical in nature, wherein all the analysis of the data would also be presented. So it's just a question of how formal you are making it that will determine the level of its formality. So annual reports, progress reports, statutory reports, non-statutory reports, these are all formal reports and informational in nature. There are a whole lot of details which are going to be there, but then it will probably not provide the explanation and the recommendations. The information will be there, but then it won't have the recommendations as to what is it that you recommend to the seniors. So they will have to decide on their own what decisions to take, because recommendations are not there. But in a analytical report, recommendations are also made. So feasibility reports, request approval reports, evaluation of investment project reports, these kind of reports are very analytical in nature, wherein you are not only presenting, but you're also analyzing the data, interpreting the data, and also making your recommendations that this can be done or this cannot be done. Feasibility means, can we establish a new office in this particular region? So submit a feasibility report. Can we open a new plant in Bihar? Submit a feasibility. So feasibility is whether it is feasible. Would it be possible for the company to invest in a plant? How useful would it be? What could be the problems they could face? What would be the various kinds of infrastructure requirements that would come up, or all kinds of requirements that would come up. And then the report writer would also make his recommendations. Maybe he'll say that, okay, yes, it is feasible, or no, it is not feasible, or these will be the issues which can come up. So based on those things which he will write as recommendations, decisions will be taken by the higher ups. And then your informal reports, small memo formats, they could be written in a small letter, in a small email, which are less planned. And generally a subordinate can write as a routine function, managerial function on a daily basis. So length will determine whether it's a short report or a long report. So good reports are also a reflection of how effective the organization is. So reports have to be written well. Annual reports, as I said, which determine your progress as a employee, the work you've carried out as an employee. So good reports make a good impact and help in carrying out the day-to-day business activities in a good way. And why are they needed? As already explained, you can examine all the possible, available, potential solution to problems, situations, and issues and present them in your report. Or you can apply business management theory in the form of a report, wherein you've been asked to do a case study, wherein you're using all the theory and applying it to a practical situation. And you can arrive at conclusions about a problem, or you can provide recommendations for future actions. And you have to show your communication skills, very clear and concise communication skills in your report. And it will also be a demonstration of how analytical you are, how well can you analyze the whole problem, your reasoning ability, your evaluation skills, how do you weigh all the possible solutions and outcomes. Everything gets
highlighted, everything gets demonstrated, everything gets projected in your report. So the objectives are varied. First of all, it is the most significant objective is that it provides information about any event or about any object or about any situation, and to the right person, to the required person, to the specific authority figure, and based on which business people take pragmatic decisions, accurate decisions. And you can carry business information to the concerned quarters to analyze the data for interpretation, to help planning by providing factual information so you can plan ahead, uh, you know make take better decisions, create good policies based on the factual information presented in the report. And based on the information provided, the evidence provided, and it reduces the administrative cost by eliminating searching cost for information. So all the effort that goes into searching information and all that, so it will reduce the burden, because based on these the will be made. So you won't have to necessarily take a off the cuff decision and open a plant somewhere while where it was based your hunch or your gut feeling that okay this. But when the report is there, then that person will make an effort to do all the and evaluation. It will not be a financial downfall or a burden for the company, then windfall for the company then. And yes, you are by way of seeking reports, you also exercise control on your employees and their performance. So when you ask them to submit this report on this particular thing or their progress in their work or their project work, then this is a control mechanism by way of which you are able to establish your authority, you're able to establish your control over that employee and see whether he's performing well or not. And also it helps in reducing disputes, any disputes that arise out of any say brawl by some employees or some kind of misinformation being done. So all those disputes can be settled by way of seeking a report, by way of asking for a report, because then it will also contain suggestions and recommendations based on which better policies can be drafted, a better code of conduct can be drafted, and so on and so forth. So also it helps to effectively coordinate between different departments. So when one department is seeking a report from the other and getting to know more about the functioning of that department or that specific reason for which that report is written, this will lead to better coordination. And this also helps in bringing dynamism in the organization. So when you ask a report writer, he will use all the business theories, do the case study, find out whole lot of things, stay abreast with the current trends, changing trends. And this helps to bring dynamism. The organization is able to function well in the dynamic times and in a dynamic sort of a way, with all the latest, equipped properly with all the latest information. And you can find out reason behind various problems, help in problem solving, to present the findings of any investigation or inquiry. Maybe you are asked to submit a report on some sexual harassment that may have taken place. So you've investigated into the matter and then you've come, or maybe some disparity with regards to promotion, something has come up, some matter has come up. So again, investigation and inquiry into that can be done and submitted in the form of a report. And then you recommend a specific action. As a report writer, you have the ability to recommend that okay, maybe the recommendations of the committee or the my recommendations would be as follows: initiate suspension of that employee, isolated him from it, or transfer the employee to another department, or maybe suspend him for a week till the matter is going on and is not resolved amicably and settled, or tendering of an apology by the said person. So all these could be recommendations given by the report writer, based on which the higher ups can then take a decision and solve the issue. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions so far? Anything you've not been able to follow, or any observations of your own, anything that comes to your mind?
It's clear, ma'am.
You guys have nothing to say? Becomes quite a monologue
Not for
for me,
now.
on Google Meet. So, reports, as I said, have a whole lot of functions to cater to, and it helps you to communicate information within the organization in an upward direction to your senior management. Sometimes you give the letter of authorization, and maybe a small report could be with regards to some training mechanism or some policy measure. So it goes in the downward direction to your staff also. And sometimes certain reports can be written externally also to various government regulators. And you basically are trying to persuade the management into taking certain actions, into taking certain decisions, into approving a certain investment decision, and into supporting a particular project. So it plays a persuasive role also, wherein when you put forward certain findings and your conclusions and your recommendations, based on those only the management will take further action. So it takes up the kind of a persuasive role. And these can be the important things that the report writer can consider. What is the purpose, what is the need, who is the audience, who is the reader who wants the report, whether you want to make it informational or analytical, or whether an informational report has been sought or an analytical report has been sought, which means whether you have to give the suggestions and recommendations, or you have to just give the other details and the explanations. And what would be a good structure for your report? What kind of language you would have to make use of, so that the target audience, the reader of your report, is able to understand it. What level of formality you should have in your report, whether you would be, what who's your target on the audience. Again, this would determine the degree of formality. So make headings which are suitable, transitions, graphics to enhance the readability of your report. So I hope all this is clear to each one of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary meaning of the report, then this is what it has to say. It's a statement of the result of an investigation or of any matter on which definite information is required. So, news reports contain a whole lot of very precise information, and that information is then compiled and based on your sound investigation of the report writer, the whole statement of that result is created, which is called the report. And we have to focus on all these elements. What is the purpose of the report, how to plan a report, how to structure the report, how to collect the information for the report, how to organize the information, what style of writing would be more appropriate for your report, and how to handle your data effectively, and how to lay out all the details. This is what your academic reports are. Your thesis, which you write as a part of your university doctorate degree, you know, is a long essay, and it's based on your personal research. So that's also a academic report. Or your dissertation, which you write for your degree or your diploma, is also a academic report. So one of the significance of report is that it involves a whole lot of research, you know. Uh, even in your dissertation and your thesis, these are all based on your research findings. So the report would be incomplete without all the research study. And it also communicates the planning, the policies, and the various matters in the organization, and it discloses information which may be unknown so far, some information which you may not have been able to figure out, some kind of things happening in the organization which probably you may not have been able to figure out so far, can also be presented in the form of a report. Or certain business investigation strategies which may not have been employed, or if employed can bring better results, that information was not known, so again it would be revealed. That is highlighted and projected. So it helps the top line to take good decisions. And a good report would be a one which is very balanced, and which does all kind of true reporting, which comes up with all the relevant facts and figures which enable in problem solving. So it should not be a skewed one, it should not be a subjective report, or a one-sided report, or a report which wherein you are trying to carry out your own agenda. So, what are the attributes? Proper format. A good report should also be properly dated and signed. So, it will be signed by the report writer, and also the date on which it is being handed over, the date on which it is being submitted to the concerned authority will also be mentioned. So, this has legal significance also. Reports can be produced in the court of law, and it's a very important document, so one has to make all the efforts to ensure that the findings are not forged, the findings are not manipulated, and everything is presented as required, in the light of truth, and based on your sound investigation and logical thinking, and then careful examination and presentation, you have compiled your report. So sometimes brief and compact reports can be more helpful, and they can give a complete picture of the problem which is under investigation. So the language is simple and clear. No ambiguity should be there. We don't generally write in first person. A good report would generally be written in third person, and you make it easy for the reader to understand it, understand the contents, and the entire report based on the list of table of contents and list of illustrations. One can screen through or read through the entire report easily and exactly and quickly, and it provides all the necessary technical details. So attention to detail is a part of a report. You have to, as a report writer, pay a lot of attention to the detailing and what goes into it. Number the pages, number the, maybe the illustrations are given a separate numbering, and specific topics and headings are given specific mention in the table of contents, right? So for the convenience of the readers, so that they can quickly home on to the required information in no time. And good reports are reliable and dependable, right? So whatever conclusions and recommendations have been made on the basis of data collection, analysis, and interpretation will should be accurate as far as possible, making your report reliable and dependable. So based on those recommendations, then policy decisions would be made.
right? So you cannot afford to lie there, or you cannot afford to not highlight things in a proper way, because then the it will affect the whole decision making and the policy making. So you need good skills, as a researcher. You should be able to establish what are the things you would want to bring out in your report, what all information needs to be shared. So you have to take all utmost care and be able to write well, present your ideas in a proper way. So in your academic reports, these are the main the format. The title of the report will be there, the table of content, and the abstract or the synopsis will be there. Synopsis is almost like a summary. The body will contain the introduction, the literature review, the methodology, the result, the discussion, conclusion, and recommend. Then the supplementary material or the end part of the report will contain references and the appendices. So I've already told you about the title page, right? So in your dissertation, the title of your dissertation, the degree for which it is being submitted, the anticipated year of graduation, the student's name, initials, and surname, and also the word count is sometimes required. How many words are there in your thesis? Table of contents, wherein you give various sections, type, parts of your report, chapters of your report, and give the exact number on which they can be found. And the candidate is free to label or give title for each chapter as sensibly possible. So you can give your own headings. In your academic reports, you also have a declaration of originality, that your work is not copied. You've not copied pasted your work from somewhere else. So this is also required in various academic reports, right? That you have to declare that it's your own original work along with your signatures. Acknowledgement is something you do in your academic reports as well as business reports, wherein you acknowledge the work and the help and the cooperation and the support received by a whole lot of people. And it is also required in your abstract. I've already told the abstract and the summary, right? So I'm not going into it further. I'll be sharing the material so you can go through it later. In the middle part of your report, you have the introduction, right? The main body of your report. The introduction will have a background of the study. What is it that you're trying to do? And a literature review. What are the works which have already taken place in this direction? And then you will propound your own statement of problem. What is the problem you are trying to solve in your research? So how is your work different from the other research findings that have already been published, or which are already out there in the public domain? So you highlight your problem statement. What is your research question you are trying to explore, and how will it help that domain? How will it contribute to domain knowledge? Will it contribute to some new techniques being evolved? Will it contribute in some practical sense? So what is the objective it will fulfill? Or sometimes, you may come up with certain ideas and maybe practical plans also, but everything is not feasible to be implemented. So what are the limitations of your research? Maybe some things you may not have been able to do, some things you think that future researchers should explore further, which are not a part or scope of your research, but can further be evaluated, can further be studied and investigated. So you highlight the limitations of your report, wherein your report may be falling short. Your report may not contain those things, but can certainly be taken up by other researchers in future, and the details of your company. So literature review is a comparative review of the things which have already uh, been published, and people who have already done certain work in that area. So what is your area, research area? What is the work you are doing, and what all work which is closely related to it is already there? and then where are the gaps, and what more, how do you plan to bridge that gap? So all of that. So you give the theoretical context, the methodological context. There's a methodology in research. So you give your primary sources, your primary data, your secondary sources, your secondary data. You quote writers, you quote other studies, you agree with them or disagree with them or challenge them. All there is a method to it. So you can give all kinds of various contexts. So you do a methodological checklist also, explain when, where, and how the research was done. You know, the tools which you employed, you conducted some real time field work, you went into the villages and collected data, or you did a whole lot of questionnaire filling by people, research surveys, or you did opinion polls. So whatever is the, maybe you did some personal interviews. So what is the method of collecting the data for you? How were the results generated? Everything, how was it analyzed, what corrections you made, what little bit of corrections have to be done. It cannot be ideal all the time. So result and the discussion has to be mentioned. So before submitting your results, you have to focus on the key results, the most important results, and be very clear and concise in communicating them, and not go into a whole lot of detail, and use a good number of illustrations and let the pictures do the talking. And don't omit anything. Try and cover everything comprehensively as far as possible. And these are the important things. So in the discussion, everything needs to be taken care of. Have you interpreted your data properly, explained your results properly, answered your research question properly, justified your approach in a proper way or not? And have you also critically evaluated your own study? And then the conclusions. One chapter has to be given to the conclusions. The summary of your research will be written there, and recommendations. What further study can be carried out, or what were your findings and what do you recommend? References are your information that you would want to cite. So maybe that you have cited, rather, that the things you have uh, the information you have utilized. As I said, it could be journals, encyclopedic entries, it could be dictionary meanings, it could be articles, newspaper reports, or whatever it is that you utilized and you got your data from, you extracted information from certain websites. So you will make a, and there's a proper way of doing it. Way of recording your references, highlighting your references, the work cited. We follow either the American style of citing the work citation, or we follow the Oxford style. So there is a method of doing it. Appendix, as already explained, can be various extra supplementary material you want to share for additional reading, for further reading, for as proof, as to substantiate whatever has gone into the discussion. So maybe certain transcriptions of interviews you want to append. You want to append the questionnaires you got people to fill for you. You want to append certain calculations you may have done, certain large tables of data which could not be put in the main body. So you're putting it here. So, or maybe some correspondence you carried out, some exchange of emails or letters you carried out while researching. So those could also be appended. And mechanics of writing a report, using good quality standard paper, unruled paper. If it's a handwritten one, then using blue or black ink, having the margins which are uniform and which looks harmonious. Header and footers are used. Sometimes reports are compiled on the Word file. So again, you have to make sure that the
page numbers are displayed, the margins are proper, the layout is proper, it's justified text, there's suitable uniform spacing between the lines, the font is readable, professional, formal. So all these are very important considerations. How are you presenting quotations from experts? Quotations have to be set apart from the written text. You are not the one who has come up with that particular thought, that particular idea. So you want to set it apart from your text by putting it or placing it within inverted commas, and making a mention of where you have extracted it from in parentheses after that. So in brackets, you put the name of the author and the page number from which the quotation has been taken, the idea or the thought has been taken, and the details of that publication will be mentioned in the work cited or in the bibliography. Sometimes people make use of footnotes, sometimes people make use of endnotes also. So the footnotes are what is there in the foot of every page. If there is any quotation, any extra remark, anything you have utilized from somewhere else, from any other source of information, you will present the details of the same in the footnotes. And sometimes people follow the end notes also, wherein it will not be on every page, but after the end of your body of your report, you will have all the details, numbered 1 2, so you can have 100 end notes. So wherein all the details of what extra information you've extracted from where will be mentioned. I hope it's clear to each one of you.
Yes, ma'am.
So footnotes are there at the end of each page. How are you documenting it? That documentation style is important. Author's name, title of the work, it is sometimes in italics, or sometimes it is underlined, or sometimes it is bold faced. The place and date of publication and the page number. So this is what the how their bibliography looks like. John Gassner is the writer. Masters of Drama Italics is the name of the book which he has written and published by Dover Publications in New York, and the page numbers which have been included. The year in which the publication happened, 1954, and the page 315. So information has been extracted out of this particular page. So there can be abbreviations you use in your report writing. So you can give a list of the most common abbreviations. So you use these abbreviations in your report and they can be mentioned as this. Various charts, graphs, and tables, pictograms, they should be self-explanatory. You don't have to necessarily explain them in the text. The tables can be self-explanatory, standalone kind of a illustration with a separate title, with a separate numbering system, and all those can then be put together, compiled together in the list of illustrations. So make sure that you go through your final draft properly, revise it, write it properly, make sure your sentences are consistent, clear, grammatically correct, no typographical errors are there. There's no ambiguity. What is being said is what is being meant. And every point of the terms of reference, which is mentioned in the letter of authorization, has been covered, has been taken care of by you, by the report writer, and has been placed logically and answered logically. So all these things you have to pay attention to. So bibliography is various works you have considered. And this is what the index looks like. So if you use the name Adam Andrew, it may find this particular text or work, ideas from this particular author may be cited on different pages in the book, in your report. So 89, 90, and 136. If you've used the word Africa, it may find a mention on different pages. If you've used ambivalence, then the word may find a mention on two different pages, 15 and 188. This is at the end of your report, and
makes it very easy, a quick way of homing on to the right information on the right page and easily tracking it down. And therefore, one prepares the index. So you have technical reports, right? So where the emphasis is given to the method you have employed in your report and the assumptions you've made in the course of your study and your detailed findings and supporting data. Summary of your results is there, nature of your study is there, and whatever methods you have employed, what sample size you've taken, and what sample selection you have done. Maybe you studied 100 people and their consumer habits, or you studied 500 people and you studied their exercise habits. So depending on what is the sample you've taken, whether they and of what age group you've taken, the sample size of all women in the age group 30 to 40. So maybe something like that is also clearly defined. So you have to mention your general objectives, your working hypothesis, your problem statement, your research question. How are you analyzing it? What kind of analysis you're doing? What kind of data would be needed for that? Everything has to be there. I know this can get a little too much, for because it's all theoretical, and I hope it is making sense to each one of you,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. So the
Ma'am,
data, you will be
do we have
asked to.
example here?
No, we don't have an example, but I'll surely post some on your, or maybe discuss it later whenever I get to meet you again. Uh, I'll tell you how you will be writing a report, because you can get a practical question out of this. You may get theoretical questions also, like what is a report and what are the different types of reports, or what are the characteristics of a good report. These kind of theoretical questions do come, but then also write a report pertaining to the say you are the the PT instructor of a school, and you're asked to write a report submitting the exercise protocol, or the exercise habits in younger students of the school, maybe the junior wing of the school. So you will be submitting a report pertaining to that. Or maybe you are a technical supervisor and you've been asked to submit a report to your boss suggesting maybe some kind of a training program which can be organized by the organization. So again, you will be submitting a report pertaining to that. So you will be creating all the information in the manner in which I have explained. You will start by drawing a cover page, so you will place it within box. You will create a cover page. Again, you will create a title page, place it in the box. What information will go into the title page? What information will go into the cover page? Create a acknowledgement, create a letter of transmittal, create a copyright information kind of a thing in a box. I hope I'm making sense. You will have to show. So this the response to this question would be a very long one, and it will be a 10 marker and no less than that. The practical question out of it is generally a 10-mark question, or it will at least be for 8 marks, 8 to 10 marks. So it will be a lengthy response and will cover easily 6 to 7 pages in your answer sheet, wherein you will be required to draw the cover page, the title page, a brief acknowledgement section, a brief preface section, a brief letter of transmittal section, a brief abstract or a summary, and then you go to the main body. So in that also you will write down the introduction, and then the various subheadings in the introduction: background review, literature, terms of reference, method of study, and all that, and then the discussion, then the conclusion, then the recommendation, and then the back part of the report. Again, you will draw various sections. You will create maybe one or two appendix,
You will create one, put some questionnaire in one appendix, maybe some small letter of complaint in the next appendix. So everything you will have to create, and then you will write the bibliography, the work cited page, the table of the index in the end. So these at least you have to write 3 to 4 elements of the front part. The main body will be written entirely, and at least 2 to 3 elements of the, and if you can do the entirety of it, the whole of it, then nothing like it. Try to make it as comprehensive as possible. That's the whole idea.
All right, ma'am. Ma'am, it sounds like days of work.
No, it will be, you will be answering it in half an hour in your exams. So you have to be very quick with how you present the data very quickly. Just get started on it. Just write make a small box with a pencil and just create a cover page for your report. Another small box. Maybe on one page you can draw the cover and the title, and on the next page you can write the copyright information, the acknowledgement section, and the letter of transmittals, and then on the third page you can write your abstract or the summary, and then the main body can start there with the introduction. Then the another 2 pages will be taken up for your discussion, explanation, conclusion, and recommendation, and in the end of the report, maybe on after that you can write your appendix. So maybe on one page you can draw 2 appendix, and then on the other page you can write down your bibliography. So it's a long drawn question, and has to be represented in a report format only. So it will easily take 6 to 7 pages in your answer sheet.
All right, ma'am.
I hope I'm making, and maybe you can even add some illustrations in the main body, and write the table of contents in the initial part, the list of illustrations in the initial part, just to give a very realistic kind of an appeal. I hope all this is making sense.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah. So the analysis of the data and all your findings will be there in the middle part. Then the conclusions will be there. What is the summary of your findings, based on which some policy decisions can be taken. Bibliography will be mentioned, various sources you've used to get your information from. Technical appendices can be in the form of questionnaires, mathematical derivations, which you don't want to keep in the main body, but for extra information, for an extra reading, it can be attached in the appendix, and then the index also will be there. So you have to give emphasis to simplicity and attractiveness. The writing should be clear, minimization of the technical, particularly the mathematical, and liberal use of charts and diagrams. So have plenty of charts and diagrams. Present all the information in an attractive layout, good print, large print, subheadings, an occasional cartoon will also be helpful. So the general outline is this only. The findings and their implications are there, recommendations for actions are there, objective of the study is there, the method employed for you to carry out your research is there, results are there, and appendices are there. So all these are the usual steps which are important to report writing. And analyzing the subject matter very logically, preparing the final outline, preparing the rough draft, revising it, rewriting it, polishing it, improving upon it, preparing the bibliography, and then writing the final draft. So you have to ensure that all the subject matter is covered very logically and chronologically. Everything is very logically presented and in the right order, right? So both these are important aspects of a report, where if there is a certain series of events which have happened, then you will have to present them in the right sequence, in the right time of their occurrence. and then you prepare the final draft, again using all the data you have collected, prepare a proper outline it and present all the material with all the attention to detail that you can, with all the critical thinking that you can have. And maybe in a point wise fashion, you can write your recommendation. In a point wise fashion, you can write your suggestions, and the rest of it could be in small paragraphs, the introduction and the discussion. So you prepare the rough draft and you write down the context of your research study. What is it that you're researching and why? This has to be highlighted in the introduction. Why are you presenting it? Who are you presenting it to? What is the need? What is the previous work done on this? What must procedures you have adopted to collect your material? Or if there are any limitations in your report, certain things you may not have covered, certain things that will not be there in your report but can be explored later. So those limitations have to be mentioned. What techniques have been used for analysis? What are your broad findings and generalizations, and various suggestions will be written. So you rewrite your rough draft, make sure there is no weakness in your arguments, there is no lacuna in the logical development of your idea, and your presentation is impressive, attractive, the layout is right, pay attention to the grammar, the spellings, create the bibliography, arrange it alphabetically. You can divide it into two parts, wherein the first part could be books and pamphlets, and the second part could be magazines and news articles. And this is the structure which is followed. So name of the author is given first, last name is taken, the title of the book is given, the place and the publisher and the date of publication, and the number of volumes is mentioned. So for magazines and newspapers, also there is a different structure. So the final draft again should be written in a very concise, objective style, no vague expressions, nothing abstract. Everything has concrete. Everything has to be practical. Everything has to be very, very concrete. And it should not be dull. You should be able to keep your audience, the reader, interested in your report. So show your originality, show your creativity, show the depth of your argument, and make your report interesting to the reader. So this is oral reports, and I'm not going into it, it's not so important for us. So there can be constraints. So whatever are the constraints, whatever are the limitations, you have highlighted those. So I think with this we've come to the end. These are some extra things you can just go through later on. Okay. Now, any other questions? Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I think we'll call it a day then. I'll share maybe a sample of some report with all of you. If we are going to have in classes next week also, then I can do it separately in your individual lecture classes, or maybe share some material on Google Classroom itself, which should be helpful to you to be able to understand how exactly a report would be written. The class will see two, one of the groups at 12. So I think I'll take a 10-minute break prior to that. Okay, then. I hope the attendance has been taken by all the
Yes.
CRs.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
then. Have a good day, each one of you. Bye-bye,
Thank you, ma'am.
everyone.
Same
Take